Hi, if you want to watch exclusive content with hot girls that you won't watch on YouTube, namely where Naruto roasts Kushina and Mikoto and many other hot girls without restrictions, then visit my Boosty channel at the link in the description.
The first thing baby Savari heard when she was born was Sasuke's hoarse cry. How? How could blonde hair and blue eyes cover up black pigment? Why wasn't even biology a worthy obstacle for Naruto's genes? They never decided what last name to give the child, but just in case they decided to discuss who the girl took after. In my opinion, she still looks more like Naruto-kun, Shizune, who helped deliver the baby, assessed. And in my opinion, Naruto interrupted the discussion with a sarcastic look. There are obvious signs of the Haruno Tebeo clan in her. Sakura, extremely tired over the past few hours, slammed her face into the wall. Will all my descendants really have huge foreheads? What kind of curse is this? Sakura-chan, I always said you have a charming forehead. Don't you dare hit on my wife, old man. Shut up, Sasuke, you're a grandfather now. Sarada opened her eyes and groaned. Sasuke motioned to his old, now in every sense, comrades to shut up and rushed to his daughter, lightly squeezing her forearms. Sarada. How are you? Fragile, pale, tired. When Sakura gave birth, it wasn't so scary. Everything is fine. Tolerable. Give the child back already. He helped her up, and Shizune brought the screaming baby, incredibly valuable to Sasuke, Naruto, and Sakura, because she had sealed their long-standing bonds with blood. Made them a real family. Where's Boruto? Sarada asked weakly, laying Savari on her chest. I think he was here. I don't remember it well, it's all a blur. Wait. Naruto responded. He threw open the door to the room and yelled down the hallway. Hinata, is he awake? Sasuke didn't catch Hinata's quiet reply, as she had been trying to bring her wayward son to his senses for a long time. But Naruto's hearing had clearly become more acute over the years of family life. Not yet? 2 hours have passed. You can tell right away that he's the hero of the village. The former Hokage's voice was simply laced with sarcasm. It wasn't that Sasuke really wanted to stand up for his student, but for some reason he decided to restore justice. Perhaps it had something to do with the desire to tease Naruto. Perhaps. Remember yourself, you idiot. He didn't know how Naruto had behaved when Hinata had given birth, but he suspected it hadn't been very dignified. Shizune giggled. Naruto blushed. I see. Sasuke reached out and touched the baby's soft cheek. She might look like Naruto and Sakura, but she was still his child. He just needed to figure out how to get the stupid stripes to blend. The thin curtain covering the passage swayed gently in the wind. The old bells jingled coolly. Naruto's grandfather sat on the threshold, he was smoking a cigar. Savari came and sat down next to him. Mom says smoking is bad, she said. Your mother has nerves of steel. She may not smoke. He took a deep drag and blew out a stream of suffocating smoke. Savari felt sad. She didn't know exactly how it worked, but she had heard that tobacco somehow helped calm you down. And then you just got used to it. Grandpa had to endure a lot. She was told millions of stories about him, but each time it turned out that it was not all or even half. It felt like he lived forever otherwise. How did he manage to get into all these stories? Grandpa, why did you start smoking? Naruto looked at her with a sly grin. Savari tried to guess. Is it because of the nine-tailed demon? Oh, no, he looked like he was serious, but there was a hint of mockery in his voice. Kurama isn't that bad, really. Then because of the missions? Did you see something scary, Grandpa? It was necessary to figure it out. No. I mean, yes, I saw it, of course, and more than once. But you guessed wrong again. War. Savari had only recently learned to read, and she was devouring history volumes one after another. Partly because almost every chapter featured some of her relatives. Grandpa Sasuke had taught her to respect tradition. And family history was part of tradition. It just so happened that her family history was all of history. So she knew about the horrors of war, albeit from hearsay. It was scary during the war. Even scarier afterwards, when I had time to realize it all. But again, it's a miss, Savari-chan. Savari was starting to lose patience. She didn't like these games. If they ask, answer Tabana. Then it's all because you became Hokage, Grandpa, she said, frowning slightly. No, a hard, wide palm fell on the top of her head and ruffled her hair. Savari pouted. Naruto sighed and explained. It's all your daddy's adolescence. It's good that you have your mom's personality. In general, thank the gods, there is nothing of me and Boruto in you. And this yellow hair and blue eyes of hers, of course, are like me. They turned around at the snide voice. It turned out that Grandpa Sasuke was standing behind them, listening to their conversation. Appearance is not the most important thing, Naruto retorted. But she has your look, Sasuke, her look. Just look at her. Grandpa spoke as if he was proud of it. Grandpa Sasuke must have thought so too. You know, I wouldn't brag about the fact that a 5-year-old child has the look of a 50-year-old missing nin, a serial killer and that bastard, Sasuke. Yes. I'm proud of it. Naruto's grandfather and Sasuke's grandfather were always weird. Soft light was pouring into the room. The chirping of cicadas could be heard through the slightly open door. Night had fallen long ago, but there was no desire to sleep. Grandma Hinata, Savari called, watching in fascination as the wool threads wove into beautiful patterns. Why do Grandpa Naruto and Grandpa Sasuke always argue? Hinata looked up thoughtfully. They have a special relationship. So, bad? Savari immediately clarified. No. Special ones, the granny corrected, smiling slyly. And are special relationships passed on genetically? What? They shouldn't, I think. But Mom and Dad also have this special relationship to Bana. Yes, a little. Hinata's smile became a little sad. A little? Savari rummaged through the chest of drawers and brought out an old wedding album. Demonstratively opening it to the first page, she reminded. You and Grandpa Naruto have normal photos. You, Grandma, were in a beautiful white kimono. Sarada-chan was also dressed very nicely. Hinata tried to intercede. Just right for sparring, Savari nodded. The photographer captured her mother enthusiastically threshing the earth. On the left was a blurry spot, obviously her father. This album generally raised many questions for Savari. It did indeed occasionally flash wedding paraphernalia, but it was only a background to various battle scenes. Flowers, festive bows, and cake looked like a mockery. How could you have such a fight at a wedding? Looking at the photograph, Savari could literally hear the familiar Shinaro coming from her mother's lips. Boruto and Sarada-chan weren't fighting at all. Hinata objected, putting down her knitting. That's completely different. Actually, it was Naruto-kun and Sasuke-kun who were fighting. They couldn't decide which last name to take. Savari narrowed her eyes. Was she finally going to be told why she still didn't have a last name? As a rule, a girl should take the groom's surname, but Sarada is the only heir to the Uchiha clan, and Sasuke-kun did not agree at all. The door swung open and Naruto appeared on the threshold. He was cool and smelled slightly of tobacco. And in vain. Because the Uzumaki clan is no worse. He cheerfully interrupted the granny. But he tells me, you see, you idiot, the Uzumaki are, of course, a great enough clan, but they can't compare to the Uchiha. Grandpa mimicked Grandpa Sasuke very similarly. In the end, Hinata sighed. Sasuke-kun suggested testing in practice whose clan is stronger. I don't understand how Dad agreed to this. Savari shook her head. He always says that it doesn't matter what rank you are or what clan you're from. Yeah, Naruto chuckled, it doesn't matter what clan you're from when your own wife can beat you up. Sarada and Boruto, you know, had their own interests too. Grandpa, who won then? Generally speaking, Boruto, but Sasuke decided to expand the competition. He said that the future head of the clan needs not only tactical thinking or ninjutsu, but also inner strength, the ability to hold oneself. Savari turned the page. The next photo showed her mother, looking philosophically into the distance, and her father leaning on her. Dad was shamelessly dozing on her fragile shoulder. The parents were surrounded by a battery of bottles. Inner strength is important for a shinobi, but what does sake have to do with it? Well, that was an absolute victory for your mother, Naruto scratched the back of his head in embarrassment. Boruto took after me in that regard. Savary slammed the album shut, because there was another noise at the threshold. Her parents had returned. The three of us. With one hand, Dad supported his tired mother, with the other, a battered man in a mask. Savary didn't know him. "Daddy, who is this?" she asked curiously, referring to the stranger. "Ah, the guy from Grass. You could say, a little, grassy. Try to create a few problems for Mom." "I see. He wanted to kill Mom, then." Dad, an ANBU captain, uncovered a lot of them. "Boruto," Sarada's mommy grumbled sourly, pointing at the saboteur, "stop bringing work home. How many times do I have to tell you?" "Damn it, Sarada. You're the one who carries them. These documents of yours are everywhere." Mom's papers really did cover every possible surface, but... "Father." Savary frowned, crossing her arms over her chest. "Mother keeps her papers in order. They lie in neat piles. And these nookanins of yours are lying around all over the place." Boruto scratched the back of his head. The would-be assassin flinched slightly. Boruto stormed into the office and casually threw the report, almost hitting the sixth in the head. Sarada, old Kakashi, and his father were discussing some problem that he didn't want to know about at the moment, because... "Sarada, you're due to give birth in 3 days, and we still haven't come up with a name." They gave him some less than welcoming looks. "Boruto, how many times do I have to tell you?" Sarada squeezed her pen so hard that it cracked. "I'm not Sarada here, I'm Miss Hokage, okay? In the bedroom, there's a lady, in the office, there's a lady," Boruto muttered, grimacing. Old man Kakashi raised his eyebrows. "And anyway, there's an important meeting now," Sarada continued to scold. "I hope, Madam Hokage, you will release our son in 3 days, regardless of the meeting schedule." The tense atmosphere was relieved by the same sixth. "Sarada, it makes sense. You're busy all the time, and the baby won't wait. It's better to choose a name now, trust the old man." "Exactly." Boruto was delighted by the unexpected support. Sarada sighed, apparently agreeing with the argument. "First, sit down and calm down," she commanded, "you're being too rowdy today. You're due to give birth in 3 days." "I know," the wife placed her palm on her huge belly and ordered one of her assistants to bring some tea. There was silence for a while. Don't you have any ideas?" Kakashi finally asked. "We have too many ideas," Sarada looked meaningfully at Boruto, "and even more arguments." "I suggested Minato, it's a nice name," Naruto shrugged. "Yeah, that sucks, naming after relatives." Boruto snorted. He knew a thing or two about this. "What are you suggesting, huh?" Father seemed a little offended. "Well, something brutal, like hate or Erasure. Hurricane or storm?" Sarada wondered. "Yes. Or, for example, Yuki. Gentle princess," the Hokage raised an eyebrow. "Isn't that too brutal for our boy?" Boruto choked on his tea. "What? I meant courageous. Hieroglyphs, other database. I guess Yuki isn't the best idea either," Sixth concluded. What if? That day they got nowhere again. Savary still didn't have a last name. Her brother, at this rate, wouldn't even have a first name. Until sunset . It was a normal work morning. A small group of elite fighters were gathered around a holographic map. Sarada was explaining the mission, skillfully ignoring Boruto's angry glares. And after neutralizing the defense group, the words flowed in a measured stream. The Hokage's voice sounded ordinary. As if they were talking not about a coup d'etat, but about regular purchases of provisions. "This will take 2 days, at least," Boruto barked, interrupting his wife. 3, at best, Sarada adjusted her glasses with a familiar gesture. Boruto gritted his teeth. He'd told her 100 times that he wasn't going to take long missions unless it was a last resort. Ever since the kids were born, he'd tried to be home before sunset, knowing that Sarada wouldn't have time to spend with her daughter and son. "I refuse." you've gotten carried away," the Hokage chuckled. "I'll fire you." Boruto had always been sure that the worst thing was when his father was his boss. And only when his wife became his boss, he realized that this was not the limit. "Captain," the new ANBU looked at him uncertainly, clearly not understanding how it was possible to contradict the formidable ninth. Boruto glared back, making him shut up. He couldn't help it. Savari was used to training with him, and Susanoo cried on those rare evenings when he was late. Shikadai put his hand on his shoulder and, apologizing, almost forcibly led him out of the office. Out of the corner of his ear, Boruto heard Inogen explaining to the intern that their captain, a great person and, of course, a professional, was obsessed with one thing. "Let's go," Boruto said, "let's finish this before evening." "With the largest syndicate on the continent?" Mitsuki asked with a frozen smile, effortlessly keeping up with him. The ninth's ideal plan involved a gradual infiltration, a gradual takeover, and a thorough covering up of the tracks. Personally, Boruto considered gradual, and thorough to be dirty words. Sarada, as always, simply scoffed. "That's impossible," Shikadai said, frowning. "Even if we somehow manage to take out several hundred select droids in a few hours, we won't get from the Land of Rivers to Konoha before sunset." Boruto slowed down. "Go ahead. I'm running somewhere quickly." The scarlet sunset slowly spread across the sky, counting down the last minutes of the passing day. "And this time he won't have time," Naruto chuckled, taking a satisfied drag. He and Sasuke were sitting on the threshold. And, as usual, arguing. "He'll make it. He always makes it." "And take that piece of junk away, you idiot," Uchiha responded discontentedly, nodding at the cigar smoldering in his hands. "There's a child here, actually." Sasuke held the bundle carefully. Somewhere in there, under several blankets, Susanoo was buried. The boy was even too tiny for his 6 months. Naruto blew smoke out of his mouth one last time, looking guilty, and threw away the cigar without regret. They have a mission in the country of the rivers. A brawl in the Katabami mines. Of course, he won't make it. This is not like wandering around the dimensions. Plus the way back. He'll make it in time. Let's make a bet? Naruto's eyes lit up with excitement. Somewhere deep inside, he wished that this time Boruto would have to break his one rule. And it wasn't just about the bet. "I'll bet 100 Ryo," Sasuke answered dispassionately and seemingly reluctantly. "Huh. 500. Naruto noted with regret that his old friend's expression remained as indifferently confident as it had been a minute before. No. As it had been 40 years before. All three of them, even Susanoo, who had been babbling something only he could understand, fell silent, watching the last rays of the sun and listening to the rhythmic beating of time. The garden flowers began to close from the evening chill. Savari paced nervously around the house. The shinobi's sensitive hearing caught the irregular rhythm of her steps. Susanoo wrinkled his face, preparing to whine. "No," Naruto exhaled, "and I've been telling him for a long time that work is work, sometimes you just won't be able to get back on time." He barely managed to jump back. Right in front of his nose a portal flared up, from which a breathless girl in a pink bikini flew out. A huge glowing tentacle sucked onto her slender leg, but the girl threw the slimy thing back into the portal with a well-aimed kick. Somewhere at the other end there was an explosion. And then everything went quiet. With a dashing wink at Naruto, the girl transformed into a stern ANBU captain, who immediately took the bundle with now from Sasuke's hands. In Boruto's left eye, previously normal, a familiar purple pattern was visible. When did he manage to acquire the Rinnegan? "Thank you, Sasuke-san. Just put it back in place." "What are you talking about?" Naruto grimaced. In fact, he already suspected what it was about. A light gust of wind ruffled Sasuke's long bangs, revealing an empty eye socket. Naruto belatedly realized that he had been tricked. Grumbling, he reached for the old frog wallet. The amphibian's artificial gaze was full of reproach. He had been tricked like some genin. Naruto mentally reminded the nasty frog that he was a genin. Am I the only one who gets annoyed that in this family they exchange eyes like slippers, huh? Sasuke silently held out his hand, demanding his dirty money. Boruto disappeared into the house. Suinao's loud laughter could be heard from the hallway. He adored his father. Boruto, did you hand in your report? Naruto suddenly asked. Sarada will get me in trouble. It didn't look like Boruto was coming back from the Hokage's office. Or Naruto didn't want to know what was going on in the Hokage's office right now. Damn it. Well. Savary, come here. Today we'll be doing literacy. Forcing a child to write reports for you? But what a great idea. Naruto pulled back the curtain, the part marked with the maelstrom symbol, and peered curiously inside. Boruto was pacing around, playing with Now as usual, and dictating the text of the required report. As a result of a successful and extremely gradual infiltration, which, took a couple of hours at most, thanks to the brilliant resourcefulness of the captain, and, to a certain extent, seduction techniques, a gradual takeover of the mine took place, not the mine, but the attention of the crowd, which thoroughly destroyed the Raku Syndicate building, demanding freedom and, she'll recognize it anyway, beautiful blondes. The tracks were covered. No one, almost no one, was hurt. Period. And I hope no one will be hurt. Especially the captain. Dad, Savary frowned, I think Mom will still scold me. I see you've messed up her perfect plan again. She lay on the carpet and wrote out each character in her calligraphic handwriting. As if Sarada would be merciful if the report was written more legibly than usual. Yeah? Boruto thought. Then add. Perfect plans have a tendency to collapse, with a deafening crash, to hell, crashing against the inexorable shores of unaccounted circumstances. Naruto left the curtain alone and turned to Sasuke. He'll get into trouble. Do you bet? I don't get involved in hopeless bets, the old friend shook his head. In the Uchiha family, it is customary to address elders with respect. In the Uzumaki family, it is sometimes difficult to understand who is the elder. In the Uchiha family, it is customary to live separately. The neighbors, cohabitants, and fellow citizens wither from the scandals of the Uzumaki family. In the Uchiha family, punctuality was always considered something natural. In the Uzumaki family, it was good if they weren't half an hour late. Because oversleeping is also a family tradition. To be considered a man, every Uchiha boy must master the Great Fireball. To be considered a man, every Uzumaki boy must master the equally hot seduction technique. The Uchiha family traditionally hides a lot of emotions under a mask of indifference. The Uzumaki family often hides emptiness under a lot of emotions. The body was filled with an amazing lightness. Each word was like a breath of fresh air. A wide brush hovered in the air, leaving bright marks on the ancient stone. Painting the faces of the Hokage is an unshakable tradition. Well, who did this to Besa? Sarada winced slightly at Boruto's shout, looming over their few children. Her head was pounding from the amount of work they had to do, and they, the Hokage and the ANBU captain, were forced to deal with such a trivial matter. Not so much as the Hokage and the ANBU captain, but as responsible parents. This morning, Sarada woke up over a stack of Meanjet sales licenses, rubbed her stiff neck, and climbed out onto the observation deck to get some fresh air and see the infamous sight. The stone faces had been vandalized yet again. 9, of course, had gotten it too. Tyrant, really? 7 frowned discontentedly behind Boruto. The unknown vandal called him a nasty old man and even a blockhead. Okay, blockhead, but why nasty old man, huh? He squinted angrily and puffed out his cheeks like a child. Am I really a bad old man? Savari's eyes were unreadable. Suinao looked confused. It didn't help the investigation at all, because Savari's face was always inscrutable, and Suinao's was confused. Boruto crouched down and looked into the eyes of his son and daughter. Your mom and I try very hard to pay attention to you. If something is wrong, you can just say so. Sarada made a mental note to remind her husband that the bad cop, good cop strategy required at least 2 participants. I didn't do anything to Bana, interrupted Savari. She was clearly starting to get angry. I really need to. Can I go to the academy already? Listen, you're suspect number 1. Boruto shook his head. Father. What makes you think that? You're all covered in blue paint. Someone just poured it on me, to Bana. So I believed to Besa. Sarada was starting to get annoyed with the senseless squabble. She had work waiting for her, but she was stuck at home. Shut up, Shinaro. I declare quarantine. No one leaves this territory until we figure out who damaged the rock faces and why. This is an order from the Hokage. Boruto, 7th, and the children all looked at each other and said, why didn't she become a cook, for example? Sarada responded to those sad looks with her own determined ones. Education is education, even though she was a good mother, a good wife, and a good daughter-in-law. Moderately good. Sarada, can I go out? 7th was confused. She shook her head. After all, who started this disgusting tradition of artistic mockery of great people? And this genetic nightmare that was listed as her family in all official documents? No, Sarada admired Naruto, shared his ideals and followed his path without question. But she still admitted that it was he who painted the faces. Do you suspect me too? The 7th was indignant. Am I the nasty old man myself? And just to divert suspicion, Boruto grinned predatorily. You yourself, by the way, don't relax either, Sarada sighed. Yes, her husband wasn't the first on the list of suspects, but he was definitely on it. Who knows what his motives are? To remember his youth, to shirk a mission, to diversify his intimate life. Boruto choked. Now, maybe it's you, he usually spoke kindly to his son. If you confess, we'll just wash these damned faces, that's all. I won't swear, I promise. Mom will scold me, the boy answered, sniffling, that's much worse, Dad. It was unlikely that the Hokage had suffered at Suinao's hands. Sarada wasn't even sure that the kid would have written the word idiot without mistakes. Not to mention the honorable title of voluntarist that the second had been given. She relayed her thoughts to Boruto. Still, the most likely candidate seemed to be the paint-stained Savari. She was generally a good child, like Sarada herself, but she had her own mind, in Boruto, of course. Savari did what she thought was right, without much regard for accepted norms. In fact, sometimes she acted just like little Boruto. With the important difference that little Boruto knew perfectly well that he was being a troublemaker, and enjoyed it. Savari had no idea that she was being a troublemaker. She did everything right, and she could prove it. The girl looked tiredly at Sarada. Mom, I admit, I don't like all the Hokage. But if I wanted to paint them, I wouldn't have gotten all painted up. Do you seriously think I'm that stupid? Or sloppy? Sarada wanted to answer that Savari's own father had been covered in paint to death, and no one had been bothered by it, but 7th intervened. Which Hokage exactly do you not like? I like you, Grandpa, Savari smiled warmly, I really do. That's all very sweet, Boruto grimaced. He seemed jealous. But what are we going to do? Call the mentalists? Don't talk nonsense, this is a family matter, Sarada objected. Then sort it out quickly, I have a test to Bana. Admit that it was you, and we'll go our separate ways to Besa. Calm down, you Tabeo. Is there anyone in this house who doesn't suffer from speech impediments? Shinaro. Hinata's quiet voice came from the kitchen. I'm not suffering, Sarada-chan. Sasuke lay on the roof, staring sullenly at the brightening sky. These crazy people, his relatives, had spent half an hour and still hadn't come to the obvious conclusion. There was a bucket of paint nearby. The oily blue surface was dappled with the sun that had just risen. Savari had the misfortune of leaving the house too early, and Boruto was a bad investigator. They should have just calmed their hot heads and thought about it properly. Would 4-year-old Suinao have written spineless pacifist on the first's face? He couldn't even write properly yet, and Sasuke himself had to look up the character for spine in a dictionary. And voluntarist on the second's face? Dirty bureaucrat on the third's face? What have you spawned on the fourth's face? Let's say that anyone could have written dictator on the fifth's face. For example, Sasuke. The fifth, unlike most Hokage, did not irritate him, so she got off easy. A dictator in his understanding is an undoubted compliment. Of course, the sixth got it harder, he was late too often. 7th. Naruto was a complete idiot. And isn't he a nasty old man? The 8th, Konohamaru, will forever remain a snotty boy in Sasuke's eyes. Faithful, kind, running after Naruto. So, a sucker. He grew up, of course, but Sasuke always changed his opinion of people with difficulty. Well, as for the ninth. Sarada could say as much as she wanted that she had inherited the seventh's will, but in reality she was following in the footsteps of the fifth. So, tyrant. Sasuke was proud of his daughter. This village needed a firm hand. And this village also needs to sometimes remember who ruled it. Uchiha Sasuke was honest with himself and with others. He simply followed traditions, which is what he taught his grandchildren. A whirring machine floated through the bright office of Soto's family therapist, Mickey 032, a receptionist, secretary, security droid, and smart vacuum cleaner in one nanometallic face. Mickey could make coffee, dispense prescriptions to clients, fight off enemy shinobi and, of course, vacuum. He loved her more than his wife, even though she looked like a crashed, overweight drone. They are coming, a metallic voice said. They? Soto asked. Are you sure? You didn't catch some virus? He, the best psychotherapist in Konoha, was waiting and fearing this at the same time. Grabbed. But they still go. Each of the clear, abrupt syllables seemed to drive another bullet into the imaginary monument to his self-control. Go ahead, Soto said resignedly, taking out a pen and a tablet. They can't be stopped anyway. Mickey flew off with her eternal quiet buzz to meet the elite clients. Soon, a mass stomping could be heard along the spacious, sterile corridors. It was accompanied by irritated exclamations. And I say, everything is fine with our family, the voice of the famous 7th Hokage was indignant. We don't need any therapy. Listen, you idiot. There are 8 people living in our house. But it feels like 50 elephants. Of course, there's something wrong with you. The glass door slid open, letting in some not-so-welcome visitors. The first to enter was a sullen-looking man in a tightly buttoned cloak, Uchiha Sasuke, who nodded briefly in greeting and sat down on the sofa. His example was followed by the discontentedly grumbling 7th, strong and youthful despite his age. Behind them, a short teenage girl slipped into the wide passage, resolutely dragging her parents by the wrists. 9th, the current Hokage, and Uzumaki Boruto, a hero whose surname history was proud of and whose name it shamefully disowned. He glared at Mickey 032, and received the same angry look from his electric eyes. Mickey's silicon heart was ready to explode. Everyone in the area knew that the great Boruto had been suffering from mild bouts of technophobia ever since the ill-fated Chunin exams. The surrounding smart devices were suffering from mild bouts of Borutophobia in retaliation. A dark-haired boy of about 5 or 6 years old peeked out from behind Uzumaki's cloak. His eyes darted from side to side, feverishly searching for an escape route. Soto understood this child. He felt much the same way. The baby was vigorously pushed by a beautiful woman, Uchiha Sakura. The doctor knew her from a portrait hanging in the medical college's lecture hall. Suanao, come on, don't be afraid, another woman, small, wrinkled and fragile, encouraged, squinting affectionately. The procession was completed by 2 people, a cute girl with funny stripes on her cheeks, 2 on each, like Boruto, and a pale, tall guy. Both of their faces shone with serene goodwill, which for some reason alarmed him, an experienced psychologist. I still don't understand what Himawari and Mitsuki are doing here, everything is perfect. Despite his venerable age, 7th seemed childishly offended. His tone radiated confusion and anger. We just want to watch, Daddy. Himawari smiled innocently and settled comfortably on the fluffy carpet, lassoing the small boy and sitting him down next to her. Soto took a deep breath, gathering his strength, and wrote in pen in the corner of the page. He frankly did not want to start the session. The family, except for Suanao, whom he had already become fond of, were looking at him with the eyes of predators out hunting. Shinobi, hereditary, clan, real. May the gods help. As is well known, the psychotherapist began in a lecturing tone, the root of all family problems is silence. In order to sort things out, you must tell each other everything that has been boiling over. Every single complaint. Ironically, the arguments that had been flaring up here and there immediately stopped, and that same silence fell over the office. Okay, Sasuke pulled a thick book out of his travel bag. I'll start with the complaints about Naruto. Chapter 1. What? Naruto perked up. And how many of them do you have? 3. Naruto exhaled. Volumes. Yes, my biography consists of 3 volumes. Yes, that's what I took as a basis. Dr. Soto glanced doubtfully at both of the founders of the problematic family, then at the thick book, clearly calculating in his mind how much time and painstaking work would go into this single session. Maybe it will be possible to reduce all the complaints to the meaning? Think carefully about why you turned to me. Sasuke raised an eyebrow. All his complaints made sense, otherwise he wouldn't have set foot here in a place where it was customary to turn one's soul inside out. However, the doctor was right. Many problems really did stem from one single one. Chaos, he breathed. There is complete chaos in our family. Sasuke wasn't much of a hierarchist, not anymore, but there had to be some semblance of order. What does that have to do with? Boruto flared up. Surprisingly, the stupid student didn't support him. Obviously, it was a sore spot. Family isn't some kind of system too. Sasuke-san's words make sense, the therapist interrupted him gently. A family is precisely a mechanism of relationships. And to determine where the breakdown occurred, you need to understand its structure. Who has the final say? Who is the leader? Me. Sasuke, Naruto, Boruto, and Sarada said at the same time and looked at each other in irritation. While the doctor was scribbling something in his notebook, the uninterrupted debate was gaining momentum. Sarada, Boruto said heatedly, taking his wife's wrist. You're the village leader, but you can't be responsible for your family. You'll just break down. So I'm the leader of the family. Naruto snorted. You're not mature enough yet. Father, I'm not surprised that you forgot, so I'll remind you, Boruto replied coldly. My coming of age was more than 10 years ago. Uzumaki comes of age at 50. For the first time, I unconditionally agree with you, idiot, Sasuke nodded. Savary cleared her throat, drawing attention to herself. Grandpa's, I've finally decided what last name I want. I'll be Uchiha, because coming of age at 50 doesn't smile. The doctor rubbed his temples. Wait. Are you saying that your child doesn't have a last name? I'll tell you more, Sarada said. Our entire family doesn't have a surname, the archival documents have signatures like the members of the former root. Because, you see, we haven't yet decided what kind of clan resulted from our union. In fact, it doesn't resemble anything else now. He looks like an organized crime group, Sakura countered. To an unorganized criminal group, Sasuke corrected. Yeah, Soto narrowed his eyes. Yeah. That's where all the difficulties come from. I see. You can't decide which path to take next. In essence, you've already united, but not completely. Usually, when uniting, the stronger clan absorbs the weaker one, but in your unique case, maybe you should think about a full merger, and a new clan? A dubious solution, Sasuke shook his head. You say that a family is a mechanism. So, the fusion of families is the fusion of mechanisms. But the fusion of Uzumaki and Uchiha is like the fusion of a bulldozer and a calculator. Mickey 032 buzzed past again, showing by her very existence that everything is, in principle, possible. And anyway, what should we be called then? Naruto spread his hands. Uzukiha? Uchihaki? To be fair, we can take the names of all the families that are part of our clan. Mitsuki, who had been silent until then, thought. Uzumaki, Hyuga, Haruno, Uchiha. Naruto grimaced. Can I be clanless? Little Susanoo asked cautiously, demonstrating with his whole appearance that it would be better to just be Susanoo without a family name, clan, or tribe. You can, Boruto nodded graciously, leaning down to ruffle his hair. Boruto. Sarada said menacingly. We've already talked about this. You're giving our son too much leeway. Dr. Soto scratched his reddened forehead with the tip of his pen and scribbled something else in his notebook. He had found another crack in their complex hybrid mechanism, Sasuke realized. No, Sarada, don't get me wrong, I don't want to be Uhuha either. Naruto tried to defuse the situation, but no one listened to him. Boruto and Sarada were too immersed in a marital quarrel. It's not me who allows him too much, but you who put too much pressure on him. He'll grow up as spoiled as you. I grew up to be a great guy. Mickey032 made an ultrasound sound, expressing doubt. Only because the shit got knocked out of you in time. Boruto gritted his teeth, and Susanoo cringed. These kinds of arguments about the boy's fate were all too common, and they spread like a wave to most of the family. Now wasn't untalented or stupid. In fact, he was a genius, as were most of his noble relatives. To tell you the truth, I agree with my brother. Hima, like her husband, decided to break her promise of non-interference. Neo-chan is under too much pressure. And not only you, Sarada's sister, but also Aunt Sakura, and even Mom. The therapist sat silently, as if in ambush. Mickey also kept quiet. But he has the finest control over chakra. Sakura exclaimed excitedly. Now will eventually become a fine Iranian. Aunt Sakura. Boruto interrupted her with annoyance. I told you not to teach him medical techniques. Why? Dr. Soto asked with interest. He's afraid of doctors. What kind of ironing tabesa is he? Boruto, you're just a mother hen, she'll get scared and stop, Sarada chuckled. Even Hinata, who usually didn't show any signs of cruelty, agreed with her. After all, Susanoo has a wonderful Byakugan, and if you teach him the craft of a medic, he could wonderfully diagnose and treat injuries, she said dreamily. Susanoo curled up into a ball. Boruto clenched his fists. Mom, how many times do I have to tell you? Don't make him activate the Byakugan. Now loses consciousness when he sees internal organs. He turned to Soto. It's the same every time. First, Aunt Sakura tells him about medicine, now's Byakugan awakens from nerves, he sees internal organs and faints. Despite all his genius, the youngest offspring of the Uhuhao clan was a stunning incompetent. Okay, Dr. Soto muttered, as if brushing aside the motley pile of private troubles that had been heaped on his shoulders, I think I'm beginning to see the front lines of family battles. You all need to learn to compromise, to feel each other. Usually I suggest that clients join hands, but in your case. No problem, Sakura said firmly, casting a stern glance at her relatives and grabbing Hinata and Naruto's hands. Sasuke grimaced, but offered his only hand to his old rival, immediately organizing a competition to see who would grab the first bone-crunching hand. Savari grabbed the edge of Sasuke's cloak and offered her hand to Boruto. Hima smiled and extended her hands to Mitsuki and Susanoo. Soto raised his eyebrows, clearly not expecting his request to be fulfilled with such simplicity. Before his eyes, the bonds grew and tangled into strange but strong knots. Clearing his throat, he asked. What do you feel? The sweaty hand of some guy on the left, Sarada admitted, wincing. I'm your husband. Crap. Does anyone experience more elevated feelings? Soto frowned. The question remained hanging in the air, which was, however, a satisfactory result. No one said no. Mickey032, who was also a smart barometer, squeaked about the decrease in pressure in the room. Okay, maybe you have something else to share? Himawari, who never complained about anything, suddenly scratched her cheek, calculating something. Actually, doctor, one thing worries me. My husband calls my brother his son, not me. I thought maybe that means something? Equals theory of revenge equals. The stadium was buzzing with excitement. The exam always drew crowds of spectators. Accompanied by Mizukichi Kagura and Kazakage Yodo, Sarada stepped into the center of the ring to deliver her welcoming speech. Her long, shin-length white cloak fluttered in the wind. After waiting for the echo of the wild applause to die down, Nine loudly announced. Welcome to the next Chunin selection exams. We'll see. Her words were drowned out by a fresh wave of applause. Sarada smiled, slightly tiredly. She had worked hard in her field, as if trying to wash away the ancient shame from the Uchiha name, and had earned a popularity unheard of by other Kage. However, the other leaders of the hidden villages did not care so much about their reputation. And now I will read out the list of young participants. Sarada paused, because the noise became unbearable. From the hidden leaf, the genin of the number 1 team are applying for the title of Chunin. She looked at the prepared questionnaire. Namely, Uchiha Savari. The next line brought a surprised cry from my lungs. Uchiha Sasuke? She would have fallen, but Boruto's hands appeared from nowhere and deftly caught her from behind. Sarada read the last name almost silently. And Uzumaki Naruto. Count to 10, Boruto advised in a whisper. She counted to 10. She came to her senses. And exploded with an indignant cry. Dad. 7th. What Chunin exam? You're 60. The stadium, languidly silent, awaiting the reaction with anticipation. The father, not at all embarrassed, stood up from his seat and said in his low baritone. You yourself refused to give me, or Naruto, the title of Chunin, despite the merits to the village. But Dad, formally I don't have the right. This is nonsense, Sarada. It's not stupidity, she snapped. It's bureaucracy. And this, Sasuke exhaled, is revenge. Sarada frowned. Father and Seven had just made a fool of her. Well. Revenge was in her blood. The years flowed in an uninterrupted stream, the quarters of the long-suffering leaf were destroyed and rebuilt, new customs grew on the soil of technical progress, and old ones were uprooted. The spirit of the shinobi remained unchanged. The spirit of the shinobi and the teeth-grinding written test that was conducted within the walls of the academy. Naruto entered the office with the grace and confidence of a daimyo. Once, about 40 years ago, he could still be scared off by tests. But not now, after long studies and an incredibly long hard labor with reports, invoices, calculating the ever-insufficient budget and hours spent on strategic planning. Now he is the terror of mathematics, and not the other way around. Savari was an excellent student, just like her grandmother. Sasuke was a scumbag, it's unclear who he took after, but he would have definitely coped with children's tasks. The squad is invincible, success is guaranteed. Seven sat hunched over a desk that was too small for him, thoughtfully scratching his pencil across the scratched surface. He waited for the convoy of Chunin examiners to arrive. The standard 40 Chunin never showed up. But those Naruto had known since he was a baby did. Literally. The examiners were Boruto and Himawari. The idea is, the son began, swinging his cape dramatically, the first stage is a test of teamwork. Candidates must cheat as discreetly as possible, and you all know that. But, he abruptly opened his scarred eyelid. The kids cowered under the piercingly cold glow of the Jogan. Cheating is cheating. And I will not allow cheating on an exam. Himawari smiled sweetly as she activated her Byakugan. If I find you trying to cheat or contact your comrades, and I find. The unspoken threat hung in the dead silence. Naruto frowned. Who raised these children, Ibiki? You are breaking tradition, he chided, not thinking about the appropriateness of his words. The first stage has never been and never will be based on real knowledge. Much more important things are tested: intelligence, mutual assistance, and strength of spirit, Boruto. In the office, I am Boruto-sensei, his son barked, materializing at lightning speed at his desk. A sheet of paper with an assignment slapped onto the table. And before addressing a senior in rank, a Chunin candidate must ask permission. Naruto glared at him. The once annoying teenager had grown into a strong shinobi and a fine person, reliable, madly in love with his family, and dog-like devoted to the village. There was only one truly bad thing left in Boruto. He still loved to show off to the point of shaking. Exhaling, Seven took the assignment in his hands. He, in any case, did not need to copy. He had many years of experience behind him. His eyes slid over the lines of intricate symbols. Naruto almost choked on his saliva. And on his shoulders, senile dementia. He did not remember a single ballistic formula. Trying to calm the wind whistling in his head, Naruto stared at the problem again. His lips moved silently as he read. At a distance of square root psi, it plunges into a medium with a density of 5.52 times psi at an angle of psi plus alpha, degree d. Calculate the air resistance are taking into account the movement of microparticles according to Mikado's law, the Hayes curvilinear integral contour integral along a closed contour, the speed of movement of neurons in the cortex of the enemy's left hemisphere, if the shuriken is made of an alloy of substances mu and zeta with thermal conductivity coefficients of 15.5583. Boruto-sensei, Seventh drawled venomously. Can I ask? Boruto nodded briefly. What kind of idiot would calculate the curvilinear integral of this? Ham, you see when he throws shurikens? Future Chunin. The children were dejected. Naruto, barely audibly grinding his teeth, looked back at Sasuke. He was sitting, hunched over at his tiny desk, and looked, as always, indifferently calm. But Naruto knew him too well to be deceived by the mask of brutal indifference. The Uchiha had also spat on theoretical ballistics since deep childhood and now somewhat regretted it. Savari was cheerfully scribbling away in her draft. Naruto craned his neck to try to see her calculations and almost lost an ear as shuriken, thrown by Boruto's skillful hand, flew millimeters from his earlobe. Well, have you calculated the integrals? The former Hokage muttered irritably. I calculated, the vengeful offspring answered arrogantly. He lied, of course. Ninja art is an art at the limit of feeling. When split seconds count, the support is not strict calculations, but a rapid flight of intuition and the honed movements of a body hardened in countless battles. The fingers themselves find the right angle, the hand rises automatically. Who, if not Boruto, understands this? A swarm of special invisible aburame moths, bred to penetrate closed areas, crawled along the walls. A worthy idea, but still doomed to failure. With the same poisonously gentle smile, the vigilant Hima took out the insect spray and agonizingly slowly sprayed the nuclear agent into the air. The remains of the moth fell to the floor. I told you I was thinking about cheating, Boruto said menacingly. Hiding his bespectacled head in his collar, the unlucky boy from the Aburame family trotted towards the exit. The rest of his team members followed him almost in single file. The revelations continued in a continuous chain, sandy eyes exploded, cheat sheets jumped out of pens. The overly vigilant relatives from the Hyuga also did not go without losses. Very soon, not even a third of the survivors remained in the office. Boruto and his shurikens seemed to be everywhere. This stage promised to be the most scandalous. However, Naruto did not know what Sarada had prepared for them in the next tests. As if by chance meeting Sasuke's eyes, he willingly drowned in the mirage of Genjutsu, only to find himself chained tightly to some kind of cross. What kind of joke is this? Naruto seethed, his indignation drowned in the artificial red sky. Sorry, habit, Uchiha waved it off. Savari was already demonstrating her completed tests. The atmosphere wasn't exactly conducive to studying, and it was strange to memorize solutions while immobilized, but Naruto resigned himself to it. Perhaps Iruka-sensei should have borrowed this educational technique at one time. The fabric of the illusory world was torn apart by the shuriken of the omnipresent descendant, disrupting the cozy family gatherings. May this Jogan get conjunctivitis. 10 minutes remained. It was time to try to think. He looked sourly at the problems, but the formulas, as expected, however, did not stir in his mind. Logic stirred in his mind. Neurons, environmental resistance, shurikens made of some alloys. His convolutions literally foamed with tension. Mikado's Law. He had a friend named Mikado, a real parasite who sold sake, beer, and chairs. As far as Naruto remembered, laws were not written for him at all, especially the moral code. It turns out that Mikado's Law is nothing more than absolute chaos, movement without a clearly defined goal. Microparticles will interfere with the shuriken's flight randomly. Integrables are even easier to calculate. What, after all, is an integrable? The mental efforts were interrupted by inexorable time. Let's hand in our papers, Boruto slapped the table. Naruto's pencil, ready to shake the foundations of science, stopped halfway. His fists clenched in determination, they had to pass this exam. And Naruto knew perfectly well that they would pass it, he just didn't want to play that dirty. Boruto was clearly sent by the ninth, and she miscalculated. Sarada was certainly an experienced strategist, an excellent Kage, and simply a wise woman who had trapped thousands of enemies in her time. But Sarada had never been a very principled father. So she couldn't know that the first commandment of a very principled father is, you can fight for equality or box your son's ears all you want, but you're nothing against your little girl. So team number 1 still had one trump card to play. Naruto and Sasuke's gazes crossed on their teammate granddaughter. She sighed, gathering her strength, and blurted out in an unusually plaintive voice. But, Daddy, after all. Savari had said something else about the essence of shinobi, but it didn't matter. She hadn't called her father Daddy since she was 4. Boruto, clearly touched, froze, a blush spreading across his cheeks. He turned away in embarrassment, trying to rub his eyes as discreetly as possible. "What's wrong with Boruto-sensei?" the boy sitting next to him whispered in surprise. "Something got into the Jogan," Naruto explained sarcastically, already blowing Sabari off the draft with all his might. Education The warmth of the midday sun splashed across the spaciousness of the family therapist's office. Dr. Soto, napping, peaceful and finally content with life, reached for a mug of coffee prepared by the caring mechanical hands of Mickey 032. "It's been a long time since I've had such a great day, Mickey," he said thoughtfully. "Look to the right." Soto looked. A thin, tanned girl stood behind the glass doors. Her lush blonde curls were matted into icicles soaked in dried blood. Her loose t-shirt and simple breeches were covered in rusty stains of dubious origin. Savary politely knocked on the glass with her torn knuckles. Dr. Soto forced out a welcoming nod, added pure alcohol to his coffee, and resignedly pressed the button. The door slid open. "Have you come to kill me?" he asked, taking a sip from his mug. "Oh, no," Savary waved it off, sitting down on the sofa. "I just didn't have time to change from training." "What kind of training?" "I delivered a baby cheetah, nothing special," the girl snapped. She smirked slightly and explained, "We're taking the second stage of the Chunin exam soon, and with my ancestor's imagination, I have to be ready for anything. Actually, doctor, I wanted to ask for advice. I have a family problem, Tabana." Of course, Soto nodded understandingly. "With a family like that. My father is constantly patronizing me, I don't know what to do about it. He's too intrusive." Boruto, who was eavesdropping on the roof, almost fell onto the asphalt. "What do you mean he's such an intrusive father? Have you talked to him about this yet?" Soto asked softly, taking out a notebook. "I've told him 1,000 times, but he doesn't hear me." Savary hunched over and clenched her fists. "Sometimes I think my father is stalking me. The boys are afraid to look at me. It actually interferes with my work. And if I stay out late somewhere on business, I always run into him." She rolled her eyes, "by pure chance, of course." "You think he doesn't trust you?" Soto suggested. "Well, yes. But I'm already 12, I can make my own decisions. If I, say, go into prostitution or go collect debts from the Yakuza, it will mean that I've thought it all through." A large body flew past the window like a stricken comet. A deafening screeching sound echoed through the courtyard. "You know, this body somehow resembles my father." Soto nodded. "And that grinding sound is like the sound of a drain pipe being torn off." There was a loud splash, followed by the sound of breaking glass. Savary frowned and asked cautiously, "And this splash?" It was as if something heavy had fallen into the ice pool where we keep our champagne. Boruto sniffled in pain. His head was buzzing, refusing to accept the rays of sunrise seeping through the curtains. Sarada's deft hand straightened the bandages that had been knocked off by sleep. "I don't understand how you managed to cut yourself so badly," his wife reproached. "Fighting the enemy," Boruto muttered with a stony face. "And catch a cold in such heat. The enemy possessed the element of ice." "Yeah, and an element of champagne," snorted Savary, who had entered the bedroom, before slapping a damp rag on his burning forehead. The cool liquid ran unpleasantly down his temples, wetting the sheets, but brought long-awaited relief. "Owned, by the way, is the key word." Sarada sighed, adjusted her glasses, and took the ironed Hokage cloak off the hanger. "Savary, look after your father today, otherwise he'll mix up the medicine again." Boruto and Savary both flared up and became indignant at the same time. "Hey, I won't mix anything up, it's not 3 years of Tabasa." "Hey, I have a training session so-and-so Tabana." The lenses of the Great Nine's glasses gleamed darkly. "No objections accepted. All complaints to the complaints register, Shinaro." Boruto and his daughter exchanged annoyed glances. Once upon a time, in yet another attempt to bring order to the family, Sarada had started this register, the thickest book in their house, where they were henceforth to record complaints, with the date, registration number, and category code. They checked it once a quarter, and then held a debriefing, for which the Hidden Leaf prepared a month in advance. Fortifications were built, emergency exercises were held, fire safety instructions were read out at the academy. Boruto sincerely thought all this was nonsense. Sarada no less sincerely admonished that the main thing was that there should be a system, and there definitely was a system. Left alone with his daughter, he felt very uncomfortable. The stern gaze of Blue Eyes tore him apart, and that was without the Sharingan. Sometimes it seemed to Boruto that Savari resembled Sasuke-sensei. And a little bit like his father. But not like him, that's for sure. And thank God, damn it. How's the cheetah from yesterday? Is she, okay? He chuckled nervously, hoping to avoid the awkward topic that was already looming on the horizon. Well, better than you, Savari answered reservedly. It would have been better if she had screamed. Boruto made another awkward attempt to make amends and then dove headfirst into the fire. Are you angry? Damn. How awkward. He remembered how the old man had once faltered, trying to justify his constant absence from home or yet another stupid mistake. Now, years later, Boruto understood him perfectly. How damn awkward. He waited for an answer, unconsciously holding his breath, but Savari only silently left the bedroom. He stood up quickly, shuffled his bare feet, heading for the corridor, and unexpectedly froze at the door, not knowing what to do next. Boruto tried very hard to be a good father. Even when he was 8 or 10, he couldn't sleep at night, distracted by impotent anger, his mother's nervous footsteps, and the delicious smells of dinner that had been heated up in vain, and he swore to himself that there would be no such nonsense in his own family. That he would always be with them, no matter who they were. And then Sarada inherited the title of Hokage, the children grew up, and somehow it turned out that they didn't need him that much. He felt completely exhausted, and not at all from a dull cold. Suddenly a wet rag flew across his nose, and a disgruntled girlish voice rang out. What are you standing up for? Go to bed. Boruto looked down at his daughter in surprise and said briefly. Eh? Mom said to keep an eye on you, right? Just as I was leaving to get some medicine and a new compress, you were already planning to run away. Come on, come on. Hiding a smile, driven in the back by the slaps of wet fabric, he obediently dragged himself to the bed, plopped down on the sheets and began to assure the girl. Just don't hang around here, go to training. You know I don't need these pills. Uzumaki has regeneration in his blood. Blood, but not snot, Savari chuckled, shoving 2 cloves of garlic into his nostrils with terrifying confidence. Boruto glanced down at the bridge of his nose and sneezed from the foul smell. Be patient, it will help. Cough. Phew. What makes you think that? That's what the book says, Savari shrugged. In what book? Boruto asked suspiciously. According to folk medicine, my grandfather Naruto gave me. What? Damn father, what the hell? There's a lot of useful stuff there. For exterminating vampires, for example, Boruto rolled his watery eyes. On the nightstand lay a tray with a creepy set of medicines, wet twitching roots, an unappetizing decoction, a stinking powder and a box with ants. You don't get it, maybe Grandpa decided that you'll go to ANBU, torture the enemies of the village. This isn't for me, this is for the enemies of the village, got it? Savari sighed, copying her mother's gesture. Dad, before I torture my enemies, I need to practice somehow. I think this is prohibited by some Tabasa convention. In my opinion, you are just drifting and don't want to be treated to Bana. The smoke melted in the hot midday sky. Naruto, leaning against the doorframe as usual, smoked on his favorite threshold. Sasuke was hanging around nearby, as if he had nothing to do. Voices came from the house. And now, Dad, we'll talk about the fact that 12-year-olds need to be given freedom and personal space. First, untie me, Tabasa. And remove these nettles. Not until you swallow a decoction of the roots of the bloody tooth. No way, it's moving and, in my opinion, breathing. Naruto, for some unknown reason happy, chuckled with satisfaction. A good teacher. Boruto? Sasuke, languid in the heat, doubted weakly. Savari. equals 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 the practice of revenge equals 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 equals. The darkness thickened. Boruto slid into the window of the brightly lit office like a silent shadow. He settled down on the windowsill and admired his eternally busy wife for a while. Sarada was writing something for a long time, getting nervous, crossing it out. Every now and then she frowned and tucked a short lock of black silky hair behind her ear. She had always been like this. Gentle, refined, stubborn, and yet there was a sharp, invigorating power about her. A power that had once been irritating, but over the years Boruto had learned to appreciate it and enjoy the feeling of it. "Well, and," she asked sternly, without looking back. "Why did you come?" "Let's go home," Boruto called, jumping off his perch. "You've been gone for 2 days. I have the second stage. And the third can of coffee this week," he chuckled dryly. "To hell with this exam. I still haven't dealt with father and the seventh," Sarada waved off. That's right. She was always stubborn. Boruto felt the fighting spirit ignite in him with renewed vigor. After all, he had a score to settle with his father. He shouldn't have given Savari that torture book on medicine. "You know, Sarada, I have a couple of ideas for this second stage. The point is to never get lost in difficult situations, right?" He leaned toward her and began to whisper hotly, sometimes unable to restrain himself and giggling mischievously, like a little boy planning a grand prank. Perhaps he himself had not changed so much. Sarada's eyes widened. "No. Listen, Boruto, this is impossible. For us, it is possible. We can't do that to them," Sarada shook her head. "After all, our daughter will be there, too, in case you've forgotten." "Oh, Savari will handle it just fine," Boruto assured her. Nine sighed heavily. "It's illegal. We'll be deprived of parental rights." "Who will deprive?" Boruto snorted. "You are the Hokage." "Well, I'll deprive you of it," Sarada shrugged. Savari's lush hair seemed to have become even more disheveled. Sasuke gripped the hilt of Kusanagi. Naruto narrowed his eyes suspiciously, taking in the sign. "A cemetery of the restless," he read slowly. "Souls. What do you mean?" "You just stuttered, idiot," Sasuke noted, smirking. "Are you afraid of ghosts?" "What did you say?" Naruto barked. In a too high, almost girlish tone. "I'm not afraid of anything, Tebeo." "Grandpa, let's go. We need to find this scroll and shove it up the ass of the bastard who came up with this stupid task," the girl said, resolutely pushing her way into the depths of the thorny thickets. "I have no doubt she will," Naruto whispered quickly, diving after his granddaughter. Sasuke only chuckled. The icy wind groaned in pain, clinging to the dinosaur spines of the local flora. Sarada's head fell helplessly onto the table. The hologram that rose above her, with the impudence inherent to all technology, listed the list of those who had passed the second exam. The team of father, seventh, and daughter not only made it to the third stage, but also took a huge lead in points. They were the first to find and deliver the scroll to the tower. Boruto's strategy had failed to the end. In vain had they bet on the seventh's potential phobia. The very same seventh Hokage couldn't seriously be afraid of such nonsense as ghosts. The sun-soaked wind brought the hurried flapping of wings. The light curtain fluttered, letting in a small, shaggy falcon. The bird landed on the tabletop and extended its paw. Sarada, blinking in surprise, carefully untied the capsule with the letter. "What the? Who will use falcons when we have mobile communications, email, sensory transmission technologies?" She removed the ribbon, the scroll of ancient paper spread out on the table with a barely audible rustle. Still disoriented, Sarada read the message. Complaint. Where? To the Hidden Leaf chapter office. I, Uchiha Taijima. Leader of the Uchiha clan, date of birth August 13, 28 according to the traditional calendar, date of death July 25, 71, place of residence Cemetery of Restless Souls, ask you to take this text into consideration. Despite the name of the cemetery, for 100 years my peace has not been disturbed by Senju or other enemies of the human race. We agreed to hold the exam on the territory of my monastery, But we did not agree on those 3 vandals, so I ask that you collect legal compensation in my favor. Let me clarify that the compensation will be spent on healing my nerves, which were completely destroyed. I fought with dozens of elite Senju warriors at once. They set deadly traps for me, but none of them were so deadly. I assure you that I died the second time when a young lady with blue eyes, slashed cheeks, and bright yellow hair, waving a sword, declared, and I quote, "I am Uchiha Databana," and activated the Sharingan. Please explain what exactly happened to the Uchiha clan over the past 100 years and what kind of natural/man-made disaster brought us to this state. Why did you send me her abnormal relative, who he claimed was the 7th Hokage? I choked on my horror at the thought that he was also an Uchiha, but then I began to guess that he was the natural/man-made disaster that had brought our clan to this state. He pulled Butsuma Senju out of the grave and, shaking like a leaf, forced us to make peace. Why did you send me my crazy relative? The latter behaved like a real Uchiha, but pestered me with such uncomfortable questions about my politics that I felt like I was at a triple appointment with a proctologist, a pathologist, and a psychiatrist all at once. We happily gave them the scroll and pushed them out with difficulty, although they wanted to stay longer to deal with our restlessness. I assure you that I felt fine both in the state of restlessness and in the state of enmity with the Senju. Unfortunately, the enmity with the Senju was temporarily suspended, because we had to unite into an alliance to expel these 3 from our abode. The cemetery area is temporarily closed to visitors. Compensation for wasted nerves and shifts in world clan politics will amount to 8 million ryo. Receipt in the appendix, on 1 page. The paid document with a stamp is to be transferred with Shinigami, upon call through the Uzumaki masks. The commission for the call is 2 human victims. With respect. Uchiha Taijima. Sarada cleared her throat. No, she wasn't panicking. In her practice as Hokage, there had been more awkward situations. The main thing in awkward situations was to puzzle her subordinates in time. She dialed a short number. The phone was picked up immediately. Boruto? Yes, it's me. I need 8 million ryo and 2 human sacrifices immediately. What do you mean, I spend too much in restaurants? This is all for the purpose of optimizing international relations. Yes. Yes, I told you, these aren't entertainment expenses. No, everything is fine. If you don't get 8 million ryo, then I'll have to sell you to another village. Human sacrifices, fine, I'll get them myself. Yes. I told you, everything is fine at my job, the usual routine. Yes. Element Commentary on element. Ofuro is a traditional Japanese bath. Ryokan is an old Japanese-style hotel. Where did you get so dirty? Sarada howled, choking on the hot steam from the bathhouse, a separate room on the western edge of the compound. The washcloth seemed to stick to her sweaty hand. Why is it that the Kaguya summit is coming up, and the final tests are 15 hours away, and I'm peeling you off some sticky mess, Boruto? In response to her grumbling, Boruto only smiled. He dozed peacefully, his grimy elbows resting on the cedar edge of the ofuro. Oily streaks of a strong green-purple dirt ran down his reddened back, along his ribs and spine. It's like I dragged myself here, Sarada. You wouldn't have been able to clean yourself up like a human being anyway. You just have inhumane criteria for what's human, my husband snorted. You worry too much about trifles. It nearly chewed your arm off, Sarada reminded him grimly, almost drawing blood from his spine with the tortured washcloth. The mud stains resisted with the desperation of suicide bomber Savari had accidentally neutralized last week when she went to the grocery store for salt. More with one hand, less with one hand, Boruto philosophically remarked, turning to face her. As a child, he could easily quarrel with himself, but as he got older, he had more and more periods of enlightenment. While she literally breathed fire and destroyed the landscape, Boruto simply shrugged and reached for his father's cigarettes to light a light from the flames of her fireball. Look, calm down. You sold me to the demon land, did I even say a word to you? Only because I knew you could handle it, Sarada muttered quietly, hiding her eyes and throwing the worn-out washcloth into a pile of similar ones. Who could have thought that you would go to war with a Beja-sized, radioactive lava-generating, semi-bionic monster, decide to swim in a river where nuclear waste was dumped for 10 years, anger a herd of unknown to science? He laughed softly. We've known each other for about 30 years, and you couldn't have guessed that everything would go a little awry. Sarada sighed tiredly and, without knowing why, carefully ran her fingers through her light, tousled hair. Boruto closed his eyes, grabbed her wrist at random and gently rubbed his temple against her palm. She swallowed, because it was hot, funny, and unbearably cozy. She didn't want to go out. The house had once again been cut into exclusion zones. Sarada was in open confrontation with her father, Savari, and even with the seventh. Mom took a position of militant pacifism, but Mom's pacifism was more aggressive than the Fifth World War, and only Hinata-san and Suonao tried to maintain relative neutrality. I hope they didn't set up traps in the hallway like last time. Boruto guessed the direction of her thoughts. Sometimes I seriously think about it. When will we finally move out from our parents? We are 32 years old, we are adults. In the clean world, we'll move out from our parents. The husband rolled his eyes. If we haven't even been able to move out of the hotel where we spent our honeymoon for 12 years. That's true. After the wedding, they ran away to a ryokan on the outskirts of Konoha, and never moved into a normal house. They just had too much to do and too little time to reflect. Dad and the seventh searched for them too furiously, and then defended the primacy of their families and clans. Savari was born too suddenly. Sarada was entrusted with the title of ninth too quickly. Events were spinning in a fast-paced kaleidoscope. Life was like an endless whirlpool, and she found herself in the same boat with very different people, each of whom had their own opinion and a habit of snatching an oar from the hands of a neighbor, only to get hit on the head with that oar. The boat was rocked from the inside, tossed by the currents from the outside, and someone, the same Boruto, liked it, because he always loved the languid feeling of the unknown. He loved not knowing where a carelessly thrown shuriken would end up. Sarada needed to know everything, and their union led to the fact that they were always flying into some kind of mad hell and were perfectly aware of it. The oar had been taken away from her too often these past few days. It was time for a spanking. Was she Hokage or not? The stadium shook. The crowd was in a frenzy. It wasn't every day that you got to see shinobi whose greatness had spilled out beyond the bounds of time fight. The stakes were skyrocketing, sake and beer were pouring down the rows, something Sarada was furious about. This time I'm definitely going to do you, Sasuke, Naruto grinned with disarming confidence. Right in front of everyone. They hid under the stands, watching the waterfall of foaming beer streams. Shut up, old man. First I'll summon the Toad Boss, entering hermit mode, and when he makes your decrepit Eado. Telling your opponent your strategy is, of course, the first step to victory. Their names flashed on the scoreboard. The crowd's frantic screams were deafening. Of course they would fight each other, it was all a setup. Sarada wouldn't put them against yesterday's schoolchildren. That meant, only one could become a Chunin. Naruto would want to win, but not take the title. Come on, you idiot, Sasuke urged. Yeah. Walking through the arena was strange. With every step, more and more old memories were awakened. The arenas were different, rebuilt dozens of times, but still merged into one. Naruto, as if from the outside, saw how his knees were shaking in his first fight with Neji. How Sasuke smirked contentedly at his victory. He knew, really knew, that Naruto would win. How little Konohamaru jumped with happiness, rejoicing at a not entirely fair, but well-deserved blow. We should have done this back then, Sasuke interrupted his train of thought. When we were just kids. If it weren't for that plot by Sand and Orochimaru. Yeah. If it weren't for that plot, I would have smashed you across the arena 100 years ago to Bayo. A short squeal from the microphone distracted their attention. Sarada stood up from her place in the VIP row, catching the surprised glances of the other Kage. Ahem, 9 cleared her throat. Just in case, I'll remind you of the safety rules adopted yesterday by a special committee headed by the Hokage. Since we want to hold the Chunin exam, and not the Sixth World War, the list of prohibited arts and techniques has been temporarily expanded. Naruto and Sasuke looked at each other suspiciously. According to tradition, the hermit mode is forbidden. Consequently, the modes of bijou of varying degrees of destruction are also forbidden. What? How can I fight Sasuke? Mass shadow cloning, forms, types, subtypes and elemental transformations of the Rasengan, elemental jutsu with a power of over 1,000 amperes. The stands hummed in disappointment. Naruto did too. The use of Jujutsu, including the Sharingan and Rinnegan, in connection with which, of course, Amaterasu and Susanoo are prohibited, as well as techniques for summoning animals with a body length of more than 20 centimeters. What? Naruto said angrily. What are we doing here, a macrame competition? This is the Chunin exam, Sarada. Exactly, 7th, Sarada replied calmly. Even from the arena, you could see her eye twitching. We're having a Chunin exam. So that real Genin can become real Chunin. Sasuke hissed in irritation and called out to Naruto. Don't get distracted. This is still our fight. He rushed forward, Naruto barely managed to dodge the fist. However, he still managed. What, Grandpa, are your reactions failing? He sneered, jumping aside just in case. Is arthritis tormenting you? Sasuke frowned. Don't turn everything into a farce, an even bigger farce. I nearly crapped my pants when I saw the ghosts. The 7th almost choked. There was nothing. I'm not afraid of any ghosts, do you understand me? Sasuke, you won't be able to get your ridiculitis together now. He charged at his sworn friend, enemy, missing mean, roommate, his main support, intending to wipe the smug expression off his insolent, aristocratic face once and for all. Sasuke dodged, ducking under the fist, and, finding himself behind him, pushed him into the sand. Naruto tripped him, grabbed the bastard by the chest, and jerked hard, turning over and pressing down from above. You know, Naruto, Sasuke croaked, not seriously, but very seriously, being choked. Naruto obediently froze. I really thought that a responsible position and the era of political life had changed you. But, you know, I think they were in vain. You're still the same. Hold on, Naruto spat out briefly, happily slamming his fist into the pretty face. The face dissolved into thin air along with its owner. He grinned. What, did you run away again, Sasuke? You haven't changed a damn thing either, you know that. They exchanged blows, their fingers forming the tiger seal out of habit, the Sharingan flashing in their eyes. The blood roared in their ears. Little Sarada was screaming something into the microphone, but it didn't matter anymore. They were in their element, which meant they couldn't be stopped even by a bulldozer.